he said, you're always going to have to give. And he said, but it's not just about giving little things and giving that's easy. He said, you have to give sacrificially for your spouse. Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Javier and Shannan Labrador are an exemplary kick-ass couple that's been married for 29 years. Not only are they blessed with two beautiful daughters, McKenna and Mikaela, but also a four-legged best friend called Charlie. Their life in the Sunshine State of California is filled with luxury living in their 38-foot mobile fifth wheel, aptly named the Marriage Lab, touring the U.S. in order to provide 24/7 marriage support to couples across the nation. Javier and Shannan are passionate about investing in and supporting marriages, believing that everyone should have the opportunity to experience the joys of marriage that God has to offer. Despite their own difficult start in marriage, they have dedicated themselves to producing content, speaking, coaching couples, and hosting marriage boot camps, podcasts, and more as a means to help others navigate the amazing and sometimes challenging journey of marriage. Javier and Shannan's commitment to each other and the application of the principles and tools they now share were pivotal in saving their marriage. This commitment meant putting each other first, always believing the best in one another and fighting for each other 24/7. It is through this dedication that Javier and Shannan have been able to save their marriage and be a testament to others.
Welcome back to the Kickass Couples Podcast. We are excited to be back with you today doing a recap episode with Shannan and Javier Labrador. First of all, we love these people, not because they were just kick-ass, and indeed they were, but they have an RV, the Love Lab, and they tour the U.S., helping couples, counseling, doing workshops, and doing all the same kind of stuff that we just love to do.
Yes, we have a lot in common with them, and that was really fun to be able to host them on the podcast and hear more about what they're doing. And they're in the same business, trying to help couples with their marriages and coaching. And it was a great all-round episode. So I'm excited to recap it today.
Me too. Kim, what was one of the first big takeaways or something that you felt you came away from talking to these two wonderful people?
Well, I think they really came out of the gate identifying themselves well by telling us how they each sort of had a workshop where they learned what element they were. And early in the workshop, they learned one was fire and one was earth. And
Shannan was fiery. I think she still is a little fiery too.
And Shannan, yes, was the fiery one. And so really seeing how that has actually played into their marriage over the course of the interview with them was very interesting, because I think it was awesome information that they learned, but it was also crucial to them being able to work together and figure out how they can really make their marriage be smooth and calm and peaceful when there's fire and earth involved.
Yeah, knowing the elements and where they come from and how to approach each other was huge. And I think one of the things that Javier said about being kick-ass is that he said, we have the right mindset about marriage, meaning they know how to approach it. And he said, we know what we're committed to and that we're in covenant with one another. And I love that idea that he shared about that. And he kind of also talked about, he said, we've decided that the first thing for us is we each make God a priority. He goes, and then I make Shannan my next priority, and everything else flows from there. Because if it's in proper order, it's going to flow and it will be strong and good.
Yeah. Well, when we get into a little bit of their history, we really learn that fire did play a big role in their marriage, and that the first 5 years were rocky and they were rough. They had mentors, they had coaches, they had people in their lives to help them through that rough time. And she said that, once I believe she was able to have a mind shift, once she was able to really process that he was for her, not against her, that he loved her, that he was on the same team that she was on, then she really started to shift her thought. And that was very helpful in how she approached conflict and how she approached communication later on in the marriage.
Yeah, they said those first 5 years were fiery and challenging, and it kind of took them a while to get into that rhythm. And I think that one of the things that they both had wonderful commitment modeled to them. So they each had a big pool to draw from of experience. And that's important. A lot of you out there, you may not have looked towards your parents or grandparents, whoever it was that raised you, and said, gosh, don't want to do a lot of things they did, or there's a more negative than positive. And some people say, oh my gosh, they modeled it for me so beautifully. And I think both Javier and Shannan said they drew from what they saw, not just in their parents, but grandparents and just the generations that were together. And the concept that Javier shared, Kim, that was one of my big takeaways. He said, you're always going to have to give. And he said, but it's not just about giving little things and giving that's easy. He said, you have to give sacrificially for your spouse. And that doesn't mean that like every time you give, you're giving everything and leaving nothing on the table for yourself. But he said that you have to learn to give sacrificially. And that means taking self out of your first response and giving because it's what they need in the moment.
Yeah. And Shannan said something that really hit me was that he is mine to protect, not destroy. And I think so often we get in the rut of criticizing, and when something doesn't go right or our way, really laying into our spouse or complaining. And, we forget that, wait, are we protecting our spouse? Are we on the same team as our spouse? Or are we destroying them in this moment? Are we tearing them down and making them feel less than they are?
Yeah, I love that. And kind of corresponding to that, Javier said, I'm called to love her. And I'm going to do that really, really well. I'm going to do that regardless of how I feel, my emotion in the moment, because he saw that modeled and he saw how it worked, and he's adopting that and making sure that he is delivering for her what she needs. He's going to emulate that and keep on doing that. I thought that was beautiful, bringing from the past into the relationship that they developed together.
Yeah, they're committed. There are no back doors. They're always looking to learn from their relationship, to deepen their relationship, and their intimacy with each other. And so, it's funny because when they work with couples, and couples will ask them, what's the hardest year of the marriage? Javier said, well, the one you're in, obviously.
It's never cruise control.
No. So we're always working and we're always striving to learn and to grow and to make it better.
Yeah. There's no mountaintop. It's not like you reach a place in your marriage where you don't have to work anymore, or you don't have to give anymore, it's constant. And
it is.
That's the beauty about it too, because there's ebb and flow. It's never the same, right? It's not. And if it is the same, if you're hitting the same issues day in and day out, that's the red flag that says, all right, we've got to do some triage. We got to do something and make
Let's
make
dig
a
deeper.
difference.
Let's really learn what the root of all this is.
Yeah, and commitment, Kim, I think Javier talked a little bit about. He said, following up a little bit more on the idea of the covenant that I mentioned earlier, he said, we are mutually submitted to one another, first to God and then to each other. He goes, this is not a contractual relationship. Mm-hmm. I have to, she has to, or if we don't feel the other one is delivering and performing, it gives us an out to hit eject and go do something else. He goes, he said, we get to do this. So for him, commitment stems out of knowing that he's committed to God, committed to her, and that's all there is.
Yeah. And I think he made a good point in saying also that he's not just committed, he is committed to her. And that's first and foremost, as well as being committed spiritually, emotionally, physically. He's all in, but he's also committed to growth in his life as a person. And I think that that's a really important thing to note as well. If we're not growing ourselves and we're not feeding ourselves, and if our cup isn't full, then it's really hard to give to others.
Yeah. I mean, he said, and if you think about commitment to your partner, to your spouse, it's in every single way. And to follow up, Kim, on what you said with Javier, he said, I'm committed spiritually, emotionally, physically, sexually, financially. I mean, he like kitchen sinked it. He said, every area of my life and our life, I am committed. And I think that Shannan responded beautifully. She said, you know what? It's not whether you're happy or not or content or not. She said, there's no options to get out. There's no back door. She goes, I'm sticking in it. I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for me. I'm going to fight for us. And I love that they are so strongly in it. And here's the critical thing. They each know how strongly they're both committed. Mm-hmm. And because they have that safety, that security with each other, it gives them freedom to go forward in every other area of their lives together.
Sure.
When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kick-Ass Couples Nation right now.
Let's talk a little bit about communication. I love what they said about workshops that they give and how they really like to teach couples, and they do this themselves, to learn their communication style. So my communication style might be completely opposite from yours. I know that I get revved up late at night and I'm ready to, 10 o'clock at night, have a conversation. I don't know what happens. I just kind of kick into gear. And I've learned that that is not a time that I can communicate with you at all. And so I really think figuring out how you communicate, when you communicate, is really an important factor in a relationship.
I know there's so many. There's audible, there's visual, there's experiential, there's demonstration. There's
just reading,
you
writing. Love this.
Yeah, I do love that touch. You can never give me. That's one of my big love languages. And,
it is.
And it was interesting. Javier talked about. He kind of quoted Stephen Covey a little bit. He said, I need to actually not just hear what is being said relative to communication, but listen to what's behind it. And often I think that we look at the surface things, that maybe what they said or what they did, and we think they're communicating just on the words, but really there's emotion and there are things behind those things. And, in other words, it's not about the toilet seat, right? Is the toilet seat up or down? But it's kind of like, well, you're not, I'm communicating that you're not listening to me. You're not validating me, or you're not hearing me when I'm sharing with you what's important to me. And that's the same thing too about communicating your needs to your spouse. How important it is to have the person not guessing, is this what you meant? Is this what you want? But really making sure that we're clear in our communication and understanding what's behind the communication so that we're acting on the facts and not just the surface.
And if you're not clear, ask, right? I mean, make sure you're saying, I don't understand what you just said to me. Did you mean this or did you mean that? And so I think really having a clear picture of what the other one is trying to tell us is important as well. And I guess that leads right into conflict, right? We go from communicating into conflict and having good communication so we can resolve those conflicts. And it's no secret that she said my method of communicating was to be just to start a wildfire. And you can kind of see that visual. She came in full on and would be heated and mad and fiery and say, don't talk to me. I'm the chief. I'm the queen. Nothing you can do or say is going to change the way that I feel. And I think that she had a lot of work to do to be able to figure out how to resolve conflict in a healthy way.
Yeah, she did. She did. I think, Kim, she said she had to shift a lot within herself and learn that he is not her enemy.
Yeah.
That he is for me. He loves me. He's for our marriage. So she said I had to keep that cognitively in the front of my mind when something would dust up. He's not doing this to me. He's not out to get me.
Yeah.
He's for me. And if I'm for him, how can I respond out of love instead of I'm going to get him first?
Right.
And that was a big shift for her in their relationship.
And he's like you, Matthew. He just has this even keel, you can tell. He just has this calm sense and this great peaceful presence. So I think he was able to consistently show her that no matter how she was acting or reacting, he was staying calm and consistent. And that I think was really reassuring to her. And that's how she knew he's not going anywhere in this relationship.
And I think they gave us two different examples of conflicts, things that occurred. But Shannan talked about one time Javier was backing up the rig and he ran the back of the trailer into a tree and busted like a $600 window in the RV. And she knew he was going to be so hard on himself already. And so when something happens, when a dust up occurs in your relationship, it doesn't, a glass gets broken, an accident, if it's an accident, they're not things that we want to happen. Or even if you warned them or told them and something happened, your response is not to be against them, but to be for them. And they modeled that beautifully. When this happened, she said, what do you need from me right now? He said, he goes, I need you to go take a walk and so I can swear and say all the words I want to say and get it off my chest so I can come back. She said, was I upset? Yes. But did I need to attack him in the moment? No, I didn't. So I needed to give him what he needed, know that he was already hard on himself, not reinforce it and make him feel worse about it, but work through it and talk through it in a loving and respectful way. And if you go back and listen to this whole episode, two great examples of how to handle conflict and how they each responded to the other to get through it and communicate what they needed to communicate. And I thought that was beautiful. They created an environment that the other one needed and a lot of respect, which is what I think is most effective.
Yeah, he said a really sweet thing, and that was that when he's being hardest on himself and when he's struggling and he is having challenges, Shannan breathes life into him and really helps him through those moments. So I loved hearing that.
Yeah, it's a great example.
Well, when we talked about other pillars, something that really stood out to me in our conversation with them was what they had to say on servant leadership. And they do a workshop called The Minimalist Marriage. And in their curriculum, they talk about serving being key, that it's core, it's foundational to everyone's marriage. And it really does, if you can learn to serve each other well, it will change the trajectory of your marriage and there can be an incredible outcome when you're both serving each other and serving each other well.
No doubt. I agree. And I liked what they had to say there about that and the quote that she shared. And, we've talked about this before, Kim, but servant leadership is not about giving everything and keeping nothing back for yourself. It's not about being a doormat and being abused. It's about kind of, I love, if you think about servant leadership, if you were to always ask this question with your spouse, what more can I do? What more can I do to make their day easier? What more can I do to make them feel supported, seen, known, loved, appreciated, served, cared for, right? If you just keep asking that question and make sure you're sprinkling those responses in throughout your day. It might be taking a chore or a task on. Kim hates to unload the dishwasher. And she made a comment just the other day. I'm leaving the house. She goes, oh, I've got to come back and I'll unload the dishwasher. Then I'll do it later. So I was cleaning up after my lunch. I said, you know what? I'm going to do this because I know she hates it. And I want her to come back to a clean kitchen and not have to deal with it. That was just a little thing. But when we sprinkle those in throughout the day, when we're always saying, what more can I do? We're constantly lightening our load for our spouse. And man, I get it back in spades. And so that's a great example of servant leadership. And I think they approached it and handled that really well. And I think that Javier, Kim, looked next at unity and appreciation and security. He said, when you take those three things and you bundle them together, I think they feed right into intimacy. And he, as a guy that gets it, I think I get it relative to intimacy too. Intimacy in all of its forms are super important to me. And I've learned that when you're focusing on the intellectual, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, not including sex, all those things, and he talked about unity, security, appreciation, that is going to make, when you get to the sexual part of your intimacy, it makes it so much more rich. And
it's an investment
because you're connecting.
Account.
Yeah, you're connecting. And when you invest, guys, in connecting with your spouse in all these different ways, the result is going to be just fantastic. And that's foundational. And he said for them, that intimacy is foundational in their marriage. And, when they first got married, they said intimacy, automatically thought about sex. They didn't realize early on that there was so much more to that, but they've matured and grown into it. And I love what he said. He said, we've invested above the sheets first so that we get the return beneath the sheets later. And that's how they've built their intimacy together.
I love this couple. I love what they're doing out there to help the marriage community. And I think this interview is right up there with some of my favorites. So I hope you'll go listen to it in its entirety. It's fantastic. There's a lot of great pearls in it. And if you have a fiery side to you and you want to learn how to sort of get out of that habit, this is a good one to teach you.
Yeah, I mean, you want to learn how to keep pursuing your spouse. They talk about that. So many
All
great
good
things.
stuff.
Upbeat, dynamic. They own their own junk and they have so much to share. And if you're in a relationship right now and you wish it could be better, if it's not honeymoon hot or doesn't sound like what Javier and Shannan have, or maybe what Kim and I have worked so hard to have, we would love to help you. Please go visit MatthewPHoffman.com. Check out Kickass Couples Nation. We are excited about our new Kickass Couples coaching program that we have launched this year in 2023. I would love to talk to you about what I can do to help you get to that relationship nirvana in your own relationship. So
we have coaches, we have therapists, we have webinars. There's so much great stuff. Awesome content.
So come check it out. And remember that happily ever after does not just happen. It is certainly on purpose.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.